Hello there. In this video we're going to show you how you can make your own personalised ring with your name wrapped around the actual ring itself, as shown in the screenshot here. In this example we're going to use the word Paul, that's my name, and you can see the letter P there and the letter A. Well, there's Paul wrapped around this ring. So that's what we're going to show you how to do. So if we start Fluid Designer, the first thing that we want to do is to go to the rings folder, and I'm going to select the all UK sizes ring and just drag and drop that object onto the workspace, and just switch on the screencast key, so any key presses I make should be displayed down here. And if I just hold down the center mouse button and just rock it, you can see the shape of the current ring at the moment, and it's the default ring, which is 1mm by 5. Well, I want to remove that because I'm not going to use the default size, and so I'm also going to switch off the default size so you can't view it anymore, and I'm going to scroll down and I'm looking for size P+, which is my size. So there's P+. That puts it in view, and this allows you to select it, so we switch both of those on. And that's essentially going to be the inner diameter of the ring that I'm going to create. So it's 18.14mm internal diameter. So I want to now create the word Paul, so I'll just move this panel out of the way, the properties window. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the alphabet Harrington font characters, and we're going to write the word Paul. Now if I drag and drop the P onto the workspace at the moment, this ring will disappear, so we don't want to do that. We want to use the append function. So it's File and Append, and if I just go up through the menu system to Groups folder, this is the main list of patterns and objects in Fluid Designer, and I'm going to use alphabet Harrington font, and I want Harrington font P, and I need the object Harrington font P, so it's the object that we want, so we append that object from the library. So there's our letter P, so I'm just going to view that from the top now, and if I just move it out to the left, I now want to add a letter A. So again, we don't go to we don't drag and drop it from the workspace here onto the workspace. We go to File and Append, and we just go up through the menu system until we get to Harrington fonts, and I want Harrington font A, and it's always the object that you need. So it's Harrington font A. Append that one from the library. So I just move that a little bit to the left, perhaps move the P a little bit more. Okay, so we need those to be overlapping because we do need a solid object. So I now need to append letter U. So up through the menu system, we're looking for Harrington font U. We want the object Harrington font U and append it from the library. And I can just move that to the right now. And finally L, so File and Append, up through the menu system, look for Harrington font L. We always want the object Harrington font L, append from the library. And we just move that to the right, so all those four letters are overlapping. Now the L is the largest size at the moment, so if I click on the main information icon here in the properties panel, you can see what height that is. The green arrow is the Y direction, so that's about 16.5mm, so that's not too wide if we're going to create a ring. And at the moment the Z is the blue arrow, so the thickness of this ring is 2mm. So what we need to do next is to join all of those objects together, and we do that by holding down the Shift key on the keyboard. The L's already selected, so I can select the U, the A and the P, and then what we do is we join all of those objects together. So if we move it now, you can see the whole thing's joined together. Now it's generally a good idea at this point to go to Tools, Object Tools, and set the origin to the geometry, in other words the center of the new word Paul instead of the center of each individual letter. And then if you just do cursor and snap selection to cursor, this is currently selected, this is the cursor in the middle, snap selection to cursor will just literally put it back in the center of the screen. Now what we want to do is we're going to wrap it around this circle, and so what we need to do first of all is we need to rotate it about the x-axis. In the properties panel we can see rotation, so I can change this slowly and you can see it rotating about the x-axis, or if I hold down the left mouse key and just drag the mouse I can do it quickly, and I want to make sure that this is aligned at 90 degrees to the circle. Okay, so there's my letter Paul rotated. Now if I try and wrap that Paul around this circle, there's not going to be enough copies of it, so I need to make multiple copies of Paul, and the best way to do this is to actually use a modifier. So we click on the modifiers icon here, the spanner in the properties panel, and we add an array modifier, and that will make multiple copies of the word Paul. And at the moment we've got 2 of them. We could change it to 3 or to 4. We'll leave it at 2 for the moment, but notice if we zoom in, I'm just scrolling the center mouse button, there's a gap here. Well, that's not going to create a ring, it's going to just create bits of a ring. So what we need to do is to change this value here, the relative offset, and I'm just going to click here to move it down to 0.9. What that's saying is the original length of this object is 1 unit, so an offset of 1, we'll put another object here, an offset of 0.9 will only offset it 90% of the distance away from the start. So that's why we get the overlap. So we've got the overlap there now, and we can change this count later if we like. Now the next thing we want to do is we want to curve this object around the circle. So we can do that with another modifier called a curve modifier. And so here's the curve modifier, and the object that we want to wrap the word Paul around, Paul's what's highlighted at the moment, is this curve here, and the name of this curve, if we just look, is UK size P+. So the object that we're looking for, and we need to scroll way down the page here, the object that we're looking for is UK P+. So I'm just scrolling down, those are the various cross sections that we can change the thickness of the word Paul. So we're now down at the UK sizes and we're looking for P+, and there it is, P+ 18.14. so if we select that object, you'll see that the word Paul is wrapped around it. Now if we just zoom in, what you will notice is that the word Paul is back to front, and that's just a feature of how the curve modifier works, but that's not a problem. If we just go to the main information icon here, we did originally rotate this object about the x-axis. What we now need to do is to rotate it about the z-axis, that's the axis going up there, and if I click in Z and if I hold down the left mouse button and drag the mouse, you should see that the object will unfold, and then as we get around to 180 degrees it will literally fold itself around the other side. So I do need to make sure that this is 180 to get it to fit exactly on the other side. So I'm just clicking on it to finalize that. I mean, I could have clicked in there and typed 180. Oops, I've gone too far. Make sure it is exactly 180. So you can see now that the word Paul is the right way round. But we've still got another issue that we do need to sort out, and that is that the circle here, which is supposed to be the inside of the ring, is going through the middle of the letter here. We need the letters to be touching the outside of this circle. In other words, we want a situation, let me just go to view and top. We want a situation where the inside of the word Paul is just touching the circle here. At the moment, this inner diameter will be less than the diameter of the circle. In other words, the ring will be too small. So we can correct that by pressing the tab key on the keyboard to go into edit mode. And we do need to be in the top view here, which I've already selected. And we now need to select all of these points on the words Paul, and we can do that by pressing the A key on the keyboard to select all the points. If I just go to view and top again, and what I need to do essentially is to move this up. Oops, I've gone too far. I need to move this up until the bottom of the word just touches the x-axis. That's the red line there, that's the x-axis. Now the snap feature is on, and so in this instance, because this is 2 millimeters thick, it will snap exactly to the x-axis. So that's what I want, and if I just press the tab key now, we should see now that the inside of the word Paul is just touching the circle. So the inner diameter of the word Paul now is 18.14 millimeters. So there's our ring. And the one other thing that we could do, at the moment the cross section is 1 millimeter by 2 millimeters, so this is 1 millimeter here and then 2 millimeters deep. If we wanted to change the thickness of this, we could change it to 1 millimeter by 3. That will create a thicker ring, but notice when we do that, it does affect that line there, so we would need to reset that if we change the thickness. I'm actually going to leave it as 1 by 2, which should be okay. So there's our ring, and what we need to do now is to save that, but we never go to File and Save in Fluid Designer. We always go to File and Export, because it's the wavefront object format that will be the printable file. So we save that, and I generally save it to the desktop. And if I just rename this, I'll just delete all of that and I'll just say it's a ring with the word Paul on it. And I could say that it's 18.14 millimeters if I wanted to as well, just to remember that fact. So I'll press enter and export that file to the desktop, ready to be printed. Now it's not quite ready to be printed because we really should run it through Netfab Basic and repair it first. But essentially that is the file that we should be able to print. So we don't go to File and Save or File and Save As. We always export it as an OBJ printable file format. And the computer's basically just converting those curves into a mesh which can be printed. So just leave that a second as the computer saves the file. You see, it does take a little bit of time to save it because there are a couple of 100,000 faces in this object, or 200,000 faces as it says there. So that's all you need to do to create a personalised ring, in this instance with the name Paul. Right, that's it. Thank you.